Hello my friends, Mia DeBolt here, bringing you more transparency in trading. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a week of trades to actually catch you up on. So this video is covering day 8 through day 11 of my repeat FTMO challenge, as well as day 7 through day 10 of the funded trader repeat challenge. Okay, so without further ado, I just wanted to share with you what trades I took this week, what my thinking was behind it. So I started this week knowing that I was already 2.62% underwater with FTMO. I needed at least that in order to get a repeat challenge. And so I will share with you at the end of this video exactly what happened. Fortunately, I do have a few more days on the funded trader. So I do have Monday through Wednesday of next week to recover that account as well. So I'll share with you what my balance is on the funded trader at the end of this video. All right, without further ado, let's dive into the charts. So to be completely transparent, I don't really like to trade too much on Mondays because there's still a lot setting up for the week and I need a lot of information in order to trade. So I sat out of Monday's trading and just kind of watched it, really tape read and did my studies. One thing that I did differently than I've done in my previous challenges was that on Monday I actually set up a one-on-one call with my mentor, Danny Reardan. So that call was super strategic, was super awesome, and unfortunately I can't share that strategy with you, but you'll get bits and pieces of it from the actual actions that I'm taking with these challenges. So you'll know that I'm trading from abundance. That's the key here, is that I'm not looking at the wall. I'm not going to hit that wall because I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on what I have instead of what I don't have. So that's really key and always important when you're trading, no matter where your account is. Okay, so that was Monday. No trades, didn't even log a day. Okay, so when Tuesday comes along, I like to trade the macro that starts at 6:50 Pacific Standard Time, it goes to 7:10. And so it starts, and so I saw a break in market structure. When the New York equity opened, I also saw a big opening range gap that was unfilled, and that's what I love to see. So that's one of the confirmations that I've added to my trade plan, and it's something that I love to trade. Okay, so here's a 5-minute breaker. I have that set up. So I actually had this last meaningful push down, and that was the swing that I had. So there is a inferred fair value gap here if you take the 50% of each of these wicks, and so that's where I was looking to actually enter. Okay, so let's play this and you can see exactly where I enter. So we're above 50% of this last swing, and so I am confident that we are continuing down because we have this huge opening range gap unfilled, and we have already taken buy side. We already filled a lot of the opening range gap that was above price, and so now we're starting to push down. Okay, so here's a 1-minute volume imbalance, and that should keep price below it and act as resistance, and so that's also something that I'm monitoring. This is definitely something that was acting as resistance and it's starting to push down. So I am looking to enter, so I enter on the TFT, and one of the pieces of the strategy that Danny shared with me was because I was a little bit more underwater with the TFT account, that I should be more aggressive with that. So it's a little counterintuitive, but because I had more to actually recover in a short amount of time, using 2% on the funded trader was more effective. And so this is where I'm entering 1% on FTMO because I only need 2.62% and 2% on the funded trader. And when it pushes up one more time, this is where I just enter the second position. So it does give me a little more flexibility with entering, because if my first entry isn't perfect, then I can enter a higher position, and that will definitely be something that I can do as well. Okay, so I'm monitoring where these candles are actually laying over the volume imbalances. This one hasn't been laid over, but it should act as resistance already because it already has. And so this one had a candle laid over. I really like the overlapping candles as well as kind of an indication that we're going to reverse in price, at least temporarily. And so that's kind of what I was looking at, and that's where I enter. I'm in drawdown, and that's okay because there is a 5-minute volume imbalance. So there's a bearish order block here, there's a bearish breaker, we're in the bearish breaker here, and this is where I had that confirmation that we're continuing down. So it was a little bit dicey at the beginning. Was my entry perfect? No, absolutely not, but it was a pretty good trade. So 6:50 Pacific Standard Time, we're starting to push down, show disrespect of this balanced price range. So that's a good sign. And it does leave a volume imbalance here. However, I do feel like once we leave that area, we're going to be okay. So it displaces nicely. It's starting to push down really nicely. And this is where, again, I'm in recovery mode. So I'm not necessarily looking to get TP or anything like that. I'm just looking to start recovering my accounts. All right, so it does retrace back to my entry, and that's okay. It's going to start running here shortly, and I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. So it accumulates a little bit and then started pushing down nicely. So this is where it starts hovering, and it filled most of this open range gap. And so this is where I do close out my trades. So that is the reason that I closed out, because it doesn't necessarily have to close all of the open range gap. It does end up going a lot further, and it would have been a really nice recovery of my accounts just in one trade. However, I didn't end up holding it. Okay, so this is the rest of my morning session. So I just watched price, I'm studying it, and I do my log in my journal, and I've recouped 1.22% and 0.7% on my FTMO. Okay, so this is close to the PM session, and so I was monitoring price and seeing exactly where we were with the algorithm open or the midnight open, and where we were as far as the weekly open gap. And so this is where I'm thinking that we're starting to go back up and maybe even close some of these 1 minute volume imbalances with some candles. So that's what my thinking was in the afternoon session. And so this is the trade that I'm looking to actually enter. Okay, so I'm really zoomed in here, and you can see that it's coming down to the algorithm open. This is where I want to buy. And so this is exactly where I buy, is at the algorithm open. However, there is quite some displacement. It doesn't actually break that structure up top, and we are still kind of in this bearish flag. So this is kind of a more risky trade to buy, but I am expecting the afternoon session to be opposite what it was in the morning. Okay, so I'm just going to speed this up because it does end up going down and displacing down and then coming back up a little bit. And this is kind of where I do go into a little bit of profit, and it's starting to play around at this daily open and at the open range gap low. And so that's kind of where I'm watching price and seeing if it's going to extend up and have a fair value gap, and if it's going to continue. It does come down to this 5-minute breaker that I have. This orange section is a daily volume imbalance, and so that's also acting as support, and it's just playing around. So it's really accumulating here, and I'm really not liking this price action. I only have 1% on this for both of the accounts. Okay, so it does kind of go up, but it makes equal highs. It's really high resistance, and it's making a lot of these overlapping candles, which I don't like. So it's not really extending up with a fair value gap. And so here's a nice run up. So it's a nice little potential. However, it does end up starting to come down. So that was just a sweep on liquidity for the buy side, and then it starts to come down again. So it's just consolidating. I really wasn't liking this price action because it came into a fair value gap up here. It did take a little bit of the buy side, and it does have quite a bit of bearishness that it's looking like. So that's kind of where I'm looking at the higher time frames, looking for confluence that it's going to continue up, but it does not look like it's going to. So it's accumulating here at the open range gap wick. Okay, so it's starting to displace down to my entry, and so I'm really not liking that price action. And so this is where I end up closing with a small little loss. So I close that one, and then I close my FTMO as well. And then I just move to the sidelines and I close out the charts for the rest of the day. Okay, so that ended up being negative 0.02, so pretty much break even for FTMO. And then with the funded trader, it was negative 0.17%. So it was just high resistance. It was not beautiful price action here, and it wasn't necessarily running really quickly towards one direction or the other. Okay, so that was day 8. So Tuesday was day 8. It was a profitable day. My ending balance for FTMO was negative 1.94%. And with the funded trader, I had negative 2.9% still to make up. Okay, so day 9 of FTMO was really easy because I only opened a 0.01 lot sized trade. And that was because on Wednesday, it was a mixed bag. All of the indices were going in different directions. It was decoupled. And I just didn't want to get caught up in any kind of chop or any kind of high resistance liquidity run. Okay, so that brings us to Thursday, April 20th. So this is what I saw on April 20th. We had a big range gap because the open gap starts up here, and so when the equity opens, it was way down here. So that was a really good sign. I love big open range gaps that are unfilled because it's kind of like an invisible magnet. You can see it when you have the right data, and so that's something that I've really come to love. Okay, so we are pushing down. We've already taken a couple of daily lows, and so we took some sell side, and that was kind of another indication that I was expecting some bullishness. So another significant thing on Thursday, we had 5:30 red folder news. Yay, I love red folder news, and 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time orange folder news. So the reason I like that is because it does start to indicate what kind of direction we're going, and it does inject a lot of volatility. Okay, so this is after the open. So the open range low gap was here, and we started pushing up immediately. So this big green rectangle is the opening range unfilled, and so we're pushing up. So we've already taken 2 daily lows, and so that's where I was looking to enter shortly after the New York Stock Exchange open. Okay, so we had that market structure shift and a fair value gap here, and so this is where I enter on a down candle. So another part of the strategy that I talked over with my mentor Danny Reardan on Monday was entering with a higher stop loss, and that way I have more wiggle room, I'm less stressed about the trade itself, and I don't get knocked out by TFT spreads. Okay, so this is a high resistance liquidity run. I did note that in my journal because we were still in a mixed bag. The indices were not in sync, they were decoupled as well, and so that's kind of where I was expecting it to be high resistance. And so I did have to endure quite a bit that day. So I do go into some profit. We have a nice 15-minute fair value gap. So it's pushing up nicely, and it looks like it's going to be a really nice run. And then it starts to retrace. So that's kind of where I have to hold my water and just be patient. So I'm journaling, there's lots of back and forth. It's really not beautiful price action. So lots and lots of give and take. And this is where I have my 15-minute breaker set. So that's kind of where I'm looking for this to now create some support. And so that's where I just remember a couple of ICT live streams where it came down and wicked the 15-minute breaker a couple of times and then started running. Okay, so I'm in nice profit. This would have been a really nice trade had I just closed out when it was starting to accumulate up here. Okay, so this trade is going pretty nicely. However, it starts to violate some of these PD arrays and starts displacing down. So this purple line is actually a 15-minute breaker, and so I'm expecting that to kind of wick off and to hold price up. So that's kind of where the 15-minute breaker is. It also has an order block, so that's where my stop is. I'm kind of expecting price not to go any further down than that. Okay, so it's a pretty aggressive stop, and I am trying to be a little bit more aggressive with my trading just because I'm in recovery mode. And so this is a really nice profit that I probably should have closed in retrospect, but it does start to give me a little bit and then takes it away. So it is very high resistance. I do recognize that. However, I am just in this for the long haul. Okay, so I get stopped out of both of them, 0.07% on the funded trader and 0.32%. So walk away from my charts just a little bit, probably not long enough, because I do end up thinking about getting back in, and I do that very shortly. Okay, so I'm back in. It's 8:11, about 2 minutes later. So was it a little revengey? Yeah, a little bit. But I was pretty confident that we're going up for the day, and so that's kind of where my thinking was. So we had already wicked off the 15-minute breaker, so I was confident that I was going to go up. And so this is kind of what happened next. So we go back to my entry. So we go into a little bit of profit, and then we turn around. So I have a lower position here. And so we just push down. I don't really like that displacement at all on the 1 minute, and we were kind of in a bearish type of 1 minute flag. And so I really don't like that price action. And quite frankly, it was just not something that I wanted to give all of my profits and then some back. So I was thinking recovery mode for FTMO, and with the funded trader, I have a little bit more time, so I could be a little bit more aggressive. All right, so I gave some back. So it was negative 0.16% on the FTMO, and with the funded trader, it was a little bit more. So because the spreads really stink on TFT, I wasn't sure how low it was going to go, if it was going to take that low, and quite frankly, it was too close to my stop loss, and I just didn't want to deal with the spreads. Makes its way up, and then it comes down. So I just end up closing that because I'm really not interested in getting stopped out for the full 1.1%, which typically happens with the funded trader. And so I'm just waiting on more information. Okay, so I had to move myself so that you can see exactly what I saw, which is a shift in market structure. And so this is where I'm entering. I have a 10 pip stop, so really conservative. This is a 1% on FTMO. And I end up starting on the funded trader as well. So I have 2 positions for 2% on the funded trader. And so again, this is a 15-minute breaker, and it held price up as well as this 1 minute fair value gap, so I was pretty confident that we're continuing up. I do like the breakers only to be tapped a couple of times. However, I do have to endure some more retracement. So you can see here the 1 hour was very wicky, and it was very much a high resistance liquidity run. So it does come back one more time to the 15-minute breaker, and it almost takes this low. However, it doesn't, and it respects that 5-minute fair value gap, so it's starting to push up. So structure on the 5-minute is looking very bullish, and it's starting to give me some warm and fuzzy that I'm not going to get stopped out at 2% here. So it was kind of dicey. Again, should I have waited until this 15-minute breaker? I wasn't quite sure if it was even going to be tapped again, so it was a risk that I was willing to take. These overlapping candles could have given me a little bit of indication that it was going to come down again. However, I wasn't quite sure how far it was going to come down. So I did have to endure that. I could have gotten a better entry up above. However, it just ends up panning out. All right, so I'm going to fast forward this because it does end up breaking structure, it does end up taking those highs, and it does end up starting to close that open range gap that I've been waiting for it to fill. And so it's accumulating here using that 5-minute fair value gap as support, and then it starts to go up. All right, so it's already 9:33. It's during the lunch hour. I don't really love trading during the lunch hour. However, I choose to do it because I'm in this trade and I'm committed. Okay, so it does retrace a little bit, and there is a bullish breaker up here. And so that's kind of what I'm expecting to hold price up. And so it does turn around, and I have the consequent encroachment of the 15-minute, and it doesn't even go down that far. So I do have my standard deviations all set up so that I know exactly where we are in the actual extensions. And so this is kind of where I'm looking to trim my risk. And so I trim my risk to the logical area, and it shouldn't go any lower than that. And so that's kind of where I put my stop losses and just continue to trail it up. Okay, so we're in a nice little place up here. It's a really high resistance, back and forth. So it's giving me some and then taking some back. And this is where I have 2/3 of my trade ready to actually be closed for FTMO. And here's some indication. So it's going up and it's coming down, going up and coming down. So it's kind of like that reversal pattern. I don't really trade patterns anymore, but I did notice that, and it's very even. It's not using any kind of fair value gaps. It's not extending out further. And so that's kind of an indication that I will in the future just be wary of and probably close my profits. Okay, so it continues up. Here's buy side. I had a 1 hour wick set, and it does take buy side. It's in nice profit. However, we start closing to the algorithm open. And so my terminus is this open range gap all the way up here. And so this is the high of the open range gap. It would be completely closed. And this is what happens. So I'm going to start playing around here at the 150th percent level of the standard deviation. We come down a little bit. And quite frankly, I don't really like this price action. It's kind of going back and forth. It touches the algorithm open and then starts pushing down. So I have my stop really aggressive, and I have it at the consequent encroachment here, and that's kind of where I just end up closing these manually. So I give back some of my profit. Could I have closed out at the top with the algorithm open and not gotten greedy and not imposed my will to actually have it close all the way to the open range gap? Yes, absolutely. However, I'm still pretty happy with this trade because I do end up closing it and just walking away. So one of the PD arrays is coming down. It's showing fair value gaps on the downside, and so this is where I am thinking of closing. Okay, so I have this. There's an order block up here that it's running into, and so that's definitely causing some resistance. It's starting to come down pretty strongly, And here's some more clues that it's showing. So I actually paused this because it's very quick. You can see here there's a lot of 5-minute volume imbalances where it just starts pushing price up. And so those typically have candles laid over them, which definitely happened in the PM session. So those are just more clues that price is probably going to reverse. And it did so very quickly. So I'm really glad that I was expecting this 5-minute volume imbalance actually to hold price up, and it didn't. It started acting as resistance. And so that was the reason that I end up closing the trade altogether. I do end up closing. So the funded trader, I closed with 1.1% on that trade for an end of day balance of 0.64% profit. So that brought me to negative 2.26% on the funded trader. That trade on FTMO was a 1.17% trade. And so the total profit for that day was 1.34%. So the end of day balance for the FTMO challenge was negative 0.60. So that brings us to Friday. So although Friday was my very last day of the FTMO challenge, I had until 2 p.m. my time, so Pacific Standard Time, to actually close a trade that was over 0.6%. So Friday morning, I could see that we're kind of a mixed bag with all three indices. We're in a consolidation with both the DXY and the indices, so there was no real high probability trade. There's also 645 red folder news that pushed price initially up and then went down, and I did have that 5-minute fair value gap set up. However, it was just way too volatile for me to really risk my account. I only needed 0.6%, so I just chose to stay out of the morning session, and I did have another obligation at 10 a.m. my time, and so I went to that appointment, and then I came back to the PM session. All right, so the PM session, we could see that we took some buy-side liquidity, so we reacted from the 1-hour consequent encroachment of the fair value gap, as well as the 1-hour mean threshold of the breaker. So that was what I was looking at, and I was expecting more of the sell side to be taken. So because I only had 0.6% to make up, I was risking 1%, so that I didn't have to go too far in order for it to actually be in profit. Okay, so this 5-minute fair value gap acted as resistance. It was a nice entry had I entered there. However, I don't. Okay, so I am admittedly pushing the button in a expansion down. Okay, so I am chasing price a little bit, and I'm okay with that because I have a big stop loss and I'm already immediately trimming risk. And so this is where I'm in this for 1% on both accounts, and it does retrace a little bit, it does consolidate, and I'm looking for lower prices. So in the back of my head, I was thinking that the bearish day today was going to overlap the volume imbalance on the weekly, and so that was kind of what I was expecting, was for it to come all the way down. However, it doesn't end up doing that. It just wicks into the volume imbalance. Okay, so it starts pushing up a little bit and then it comes down. It does take that and extends down nicely, but not enough for my actual account to be recovered. So I have to endure some back and forth. This is another high resistance liquidity run. However, I don't really have a choice. Okay, so I'm fast forwarding this because it does consolidate for a very long time before it chooses to go one direction or another. So it does come up, sweeps that liquidity, and then pushes down quite a bit. Okay, so I'm in this for a nice little profit so far. It's still not enough, and it's not quite getting that sell side target that I'm looking for. So that's where I am just really being conscious of this 5-minute volume imbalance, which is right here. It's laying a candle over that on a 5-minute basis. And so this is where it starts to consolidate and not make sense for me to be in anymore. So again, it just keeps going back and forth, and so I'm trimming my risk. I'm really being aggressive here, maybe a little bit too aggressive, but you can see that the 5-minute doesn't actually break structure, and this is almost 10 minutes of consolidation here. Okay, because it's consolidating for so long here, I am not interested in this trade anymore. It extends up and I end up closing. So I ended up closing at 0.22%, and I had a little bit of profit on TFT as well. Okay, because I need 0.38%, so I actually reduced my risk to 0.5% on this next trade. So I actually sell again. I'm still looking for bearishness. However, it's really not deciding to go bearish. So each of these candles continues to close up. So this is where I'm thinking I'm offsides. There is a 5-minute volume imbalance here in the orange, and so it's okay if it lays a candle here, but I want it to run away and create resistance. So here's another little retracement here, and nice displacement down. However, it goes right back into it, and not only goes back into it, but it goes up. And I'm thinking I'm offside, so I do trim my risk to another lower position, and that's kind of where I'm thinking this is not necessarily coming down. So it doesn't respect that 1 minute breaker, and it's just really consolidating and pushing up. All right, so it displaces down. It looks nice, like another nice sell. So this is where I do have 0.5% on this one as well. And so I'm in this for 0.5%. So I gave back 0.16%. So again, I have a little bit more to recover. And so this is a nice little drop. So now it pushes up aggressively, and so I'm at 0.12%, and so I am expecting this to actually start going bullish. And so I switched my bias. It has a nice fair value gap right here, and so this is where I have a 1%. So I'm scalping. I really don't like scalping. This is something that I really was not looking forward to, was coming down to the wire, and I was just really not looking forward to this. But it's something that I ended up making my bed, and so I had to do it. But the beautiful thing is that I have the skill set to actually pull it off, and so that's kind of where I was looking at this. I changed my mind because it is coming down to the end of the day, so it's 12:51. I'm expecting the macro to kick in here pretty soon, so starting to go for buy side, and so I switched this to 2%. So I really need only a little bit more of this price action to actually get there. Okay, so this overlapping candle should be a balanced price range, but it's already violated that, so I do believe that we're going up, and so that's where I do buy. Okay, so we are at the algorithm open. We are at the open range gap low, and we're still pushing up. So I already pushed the button. I have a very conservative stop loss. It would stop me out probably at 1%, but I've already trimmed it. I do have 2% on this, and so I'm really only looking for a little bit, and to be exact, I'm looking for 0.48%. So these equal highs, they're fairly equal. I'm already trimming my risk to a place where I don't believe that price should go, and it shouldn't go any lower than the algorithm open again. However, it has a 1 minute volume imbalance that it reacted from. And so that's kind of where I'm thinking maybe I'm offsides and I might lose this challenge. However, it does bounce off of this 1 minute fair value gap. I am playing around with my stop. However, my original stop was down here, so that would be 2%. And I'm nowhere near that. So I'm just giving it a little bit of room. I don't want to be stopped out or prematurely by spreads. And so I just want to give it some room as it wants to retrace. Okay, so I'm expecting at least a 1 minute volume imbalance candle. And so that's where I'm expecting this to actually push and then push up. And so now that I've moved my stop to a conservative level, I'm actually looking for 0.48. So I closed it at 0.5 something, and so it's 0.65 for the day. Okay, so I actually pulled it off. Not to say that that wasn't stressful at all, and something that I might do differently is just be more aggressive during the challenge so that I don't have to come down to the wire, and so that I actually pass my challenges. So if you've been following me, you can see that I've been a really conservative trader. So I'm going to be a lot more aggressive coming into this next repeat challenge. And so I'm really grateful for a repeat challenge. A repeat challenge means that I didn't fail the challenge. And so I still have some work to do with the funded trader. Okay, so you can see my balance here is actually positive. I have a little profit. So you can see my profit and loss for the 20th, the 21st. And so today was a very big scalping day for me in the PM session, and it just ended up working out. So I'm really grateful for that. With the funded trader, I still have some work to do. It was day 10 today, and I have 2.06 still to recover. So I still have Monday through Wednesday of next week to actually do that. I'm confident that I can do that, and I will definitely be implementing my strategy of just having abundance, thinking about abundance, focusing on abundance, and trading from that mind space. So you can see here my trades for the 18th, the 19th, I had a very small 0.01 lot trade, and then I had my trades for the 20th. All right, my friends, you're all caught up, and I'm repeating the FTMO challenge. I might start it next week. However, I'm pretty focused on the funded trader, so I'm going to do that challenge first and foremost. Once I recover that, then all bets are off. So my friends, if you're enjoying this journey with me from where I'm at to the 7-figure mark, subscribe below so that you're getting all these videos, because one of these days, very shortly, I am going to be passing these challenges. I'm going to be moving on to phase 2, and you'll be able to be along this journey with me. All right, thank you so much for those of you who are supporting me in this journey. I really appreciate your comments. It's such a blessing to have you in my community, and I look forward to bringing more of these videos to you. So my friends, remember to subscribe below to get more videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next trade. See you soon.